Hello there, YouTube. This is my second cat. This is the all black one I was telling you about in the last video. Anyway, this video I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. This is a player's handbook. Now, I mentioned D&D previously, and I wanted to talk about Dungeons and Dragons a little broadly. And this is going to be the focus of a few videos, because I want to go over a few things in detail. The Player's Handbook is the go-to book for playing Dungeons and Dragons. It is the starting place, but it's not the only book we use now. If you're playing 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, which is the edition you should be playing, it is the best edition, but it's not the only thing you should be looking at. There are bits from 3rd and 4th edition that you should probably be looking towards as well. You are getting the best D&D experience. Now, this game, it is broken. It is incomplete. What I intend to do with these videos is I'm going to go through and I'm going to deep dive into all different aspects of this game, and I'm going to basically review and edit this game. I'm going to do a slow, incremental rewrite of Dungeons and Dragons, explaining all the little edits that I would make, all the little changes I would make, because I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons now since 3rd edition. I did play a little bit of 2nd edition, not much though, and I've been running it since 3.5. I've run a little bit of 3rd edition, but when I was running 3.5 was out, and pretty much everyone was using 3.5. I've done a little bit of 3rd edition, because 3.5 and 3rd were compatible. I have seen what's coming with 1 D&D. I am not impressed. There are a few things in there that I like. There is a lot of simplification. There is a lot of moving towards power creep, and there is a lot of moving towards making every character capable of everything, which is not a good move. Instead of having penalties and racial modifiers, there are moves towards everyone being able to pick everything. So you can have an elf, but you can have that elf have any attribute bonus. So there's no racial modifiers. There's just whatever lineage you want, and that's a bad thing. That means there's not going to be any flavour. When you meet a dwarf, you're not going to be able to go, that's a dwarf, that dwarf will be this. There's not going to be that feeling that the dwarf is going to be stronger and tougher than what you'll expect from other characters. There's not going to be that feeling that when you meet an elf or a fae, they're probably going to be more charismatic. You're not going to get that, because that's just not going to be true anymore. They can be anything. You could meet a gnome, and that gnome could have strength up the wazoo, even though it's tiny. You could literally play a fairy, like Tinkerbell, and you could have strength and constitution as your chosen attributes. That's just ridiculous. Yes, I know it is, isn't it? She still gets confused when I talk to the camera. She doesn't know why I'm talking to someone who isn't her. There's no one here, and I'm not talking to her, so obviously something's wrong, isn't it, love? You're gonna have to get down. Anyway, I'm gonna go through this, and I'm gonna explain the changes I would make, the issues I've got with it, and go over a few little house rules. I'm also going to go through each race, each class, and I'm going to tweak as I go. And by the end of it, I will have compiled down my personal tweaks, my house rules, and what we'll end up with is a total rewrite of D&D from beginning to end, where everything is rebalanced and repurposed, and we'll end up with my alternate version of D&D. Hopefully that will be interesting to someone, and it'll be of use. Now, I highly recommend having the books, because most of what I'm going for here will be slight variations. Dungeons and Dragons is a great game. Don't get me wrong. When I say this is a broken and unbalanced game. What I'm saying is that this game needs tweaking. This game is a great game. There's a reason people keep playing it. There's a reason I keep going back to this game. It's because it is actually a fantastic game. I'm not gonna claim that it's a bad game. It's not. It's not my favourite role-playing game. It is the most popular role-playing game for a reason, though. And it would be wrong of me to say that Dungeons and Dragons is poor quality, because it's simply not. But it is designed with the masses in mind. It is designed with the base player in mind, which means that what you end up with is a game that is introductory. It's a game that is mass appeal, and that's great. But if you're used to playing role-playing games, if you're used to playing tabletop games, this is going to not really appeal quite so much. You're going to find that a lot of the trappings of this game are problematic for you. They're not going to resonate as well. There's issues with the way the role-playing is handled. It's way too focused on combat and doesn't really allow for the role-playing to take centre stage. The exploration is not well managed, and loot and things like that are loot are not well described. The economic system is not well described. Crafting is not well described. A lot of these systems, they are only bare bones. So there's a lot of house ruling you need to do in order to get those things working if you want a holistic system. Like I say, it's a great system if you want to run a pre-written campaign where you're going to go in and beat the big bad guy, cast spells and hit him with a sword, and see him off and be a hero. But if you want to have a complex storyline where there's different empires and there's political intrigue and there's mystery and there's tension, where you play different roles and where you can have people who are not really combatants and where you're building your own stuff and all of those elements play a part in the game. Dungeons and Dragons suffers a little, but the background is there, the system is there, and on top of that, the setting is huge. One of the things that I've always said is that the Dungeons and Dragons setting has one of the most expansive, one of the most intriguing settings you can use. The Forgotten Realms is massive. It has hundreds of books. It has loads of characters, loads of depth to it. Probably one of the biggest and most in-depth settings you can use as a fantasy setting, and that's only one of the settings. So you've got Forgotten Realms. You've then got other settings as well. Like, for example, you've got the Greyhawk setting. You've got the Dragonlance setting. You've got the Eberron setting. But after you go through all of those, you then have the endless settings from Magic the Gathering. Now, Magic the Gathering is also owned by Wizards of the Coast, and they have... You're going to have to get down, love. Oh, sorry, but you're really in the way, and I know you want attention because you can hear me talking, but I'm trying to make a video. Magic the Gathering. Endless planes. This is a book detailing all the different planes, and there's only a few pages per plane. But just in this book alone, there is the planes of Dominaria, Mirrodin, Tarkia, Alara, Kaladesh, Amonkhet, Ixalan, Ravnica, Arcavios, Eldraine, Fiora, Ikoria, Kaldheim, Kylem, Theros, Zendikar, Innistrad, and Kamigawa. That's just some of them. There are more. Two that are missing from this list that I've used in the past are Lorwyn and Shadowvar, which I personally like to use in a very specific way. Lorwyn and Shadowvar in the Magic the Gathering universe are very, very similar in tone and appeal to the Feywild and the Shadowfell from Forgotten Realms. And as those are other planes, I like to have them be the same place. There's no reason Lorwyn and Shadowvar couldn't be the Feywilds and the Shadowfell. Just have the bits that are connected to the Forgotten Realms just be on an undiscovered part of that plane, so that they can be more expansive, and it gives the Forgotten Realms and other areas like Eberron that also have connections to a Feywild and a Shadowfell ways of connecting. So when you have characters from the Forgotten Realms and from Eberron who talk about going to the Feywilds is just what those planes call Lorwyn. In the same way that most people don't call the Forgotten Realms the Forgotten Realms. They call it Toril or Faerun, which is just the name of the continent. There's others as well. There's Arthas, which is the world for Dark Sun. That one's a really hard one to bring in because it's so non-magical, but you could bring that one in. Then you can bring in the Planescape universe, where you've got the City of Sigil, and you can have all the different material planes be connected in the Astral Sea, and that becomes very interesting as you try and map them all out together. What I've tried to do, as I've run a Planescape game in the past, is have all of the planes from Magic the Gathering show up in a Planescape game, and then have it so that you can use spelljammers to travel between them. That's been very interesting. It makes the universe feel very whole. Additionally, you can then have the outer planes, the elemental planes, and the planes of hell come off from there, as the material plane no longer just is one plane, but you have the material plane be Sigil, the city, the Outlands, which is the big flat plane of elemental chaos that sits beneath Sigil. You have the Astral Sea with all these different planets which represent the different planes, Forgotten Realms being one, all the different planes all being different ones there. You have Eberron, you have various others from different settings. Dragonlance, which I know is coming out soon. They're all different planes. And you have the material plane all be one universe with an astral sea that you can sail between. That's how I do it. That means that to travel to a hell dimension means to travel further afield than that. And that's interesting. It means that that's outside of travelling across the astral sea. You can't sail to the hell dimension. You have to travel through it a different way. That's fun and interesting. So the heavenly dimensions, the hell dimensions, the chaos dimensions, they become something completely different. You can't sail to them with spelljammers, but you can get to them through planar portals and through hell gates and things like that. Those become interesting. That's how I do the cosmos of D&D. But that way, you end up with so many different places to explore that you can have stories that go on forever and ever. But you can also have a really small story. You can have a story that takes place entirely in the Forgotten Realms, in one part of Faerun, in the city of Baldur's Gate, and you can go right down to the guilds and the different people, the different regions within the city of Baldur's Gate. If you pick up the Player's Handbook and you pick up like the Swords Coast book and the Baldur's Gate book, because there's a specific Baldur's Gate book, you can spend all your time just in that one city. This whole city is mapped, and there's loads of little bits of detail. You can easily play the game and never leave that city. So you can have a game where you're really, really hyper-focused on a single city, and everything is completely interconnected and contained there. Or you can go out to the country, the Swords Coast, all the different city-states. Or then from there you can visit Cormyr or Arn, or you can go down to the jungles of Chult. You can go over to Thay and the Red Wizards, and you can spend time on the various different countries in Faerun. And then you can go out further again, and you can visit the different continents. You can go to Mazdaca, and you can go to other continents in Toril. You could even go to Kara-Tur, where there is a more Asian-inspired part of the map. There have been books on that, though they're all from 3rd edition. I don't believe there's a 5th edition book on Kara-Tur, just shame. But a great setting all the same. Great world, loads and loads of intrigue there. You can go to all of these different places. There's Zakahara in the south, which is another continent with yet more countries. There's loads of different places you can go, things you can do, and then from there you can travel further afield again. You can leave the plane of Toril, you can travel to a completely different plane, and if you wanted to, from there you can go right back down again. So you could go to Eberron, or you could go to Ravnica, and from there you can go right down to the city level again. There's so many different places you can explore. There's so much rich history because there's been so many books and so much written. There's been hundreds of novels, and for Magic the Gathering there has been literally decades of the card game and the short stories and the web stories telling the story for so long now that it is possibly the single richest and most continuous fantasy universe that exists. I would imagine that it would put even the likes of like Marvel Universe to shame. I can't think of anything that's quite that big. So that's one of the reasons I like D&D. But anyway, that aside, I want to get into the mechanics. I also want to get into the world. So that's what I'm hoping to achieve with these videos. I got sidetracked there talking about the universe and what you can do with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this book, and I'm going to go through the other books as well. I've got other books that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the races and classes individually. I'm going to deep dive. I'm going to decide where the baseline should be and how we're going to balance things. And we're going to try and make a game that is better. And that's the goal. So, hopefully, everyone will find this interesting and we'll get something good out of this. So, next video, we'll come together to discuss the basics of character creation. That's going to be in the next video before we even talk about race, because I've got a few things to say about the basics of character creation. Until then, I'll see you later. Bye.